The Gundam franchise is one of the biggest phenomena in anime pop culture, and has been for a few decades, having supplied a ton of anime reincarnations, spin-offs, manga, more than a handful of movies, and oh boy, I couldn't even begin to tell you how many model kit toys out there on the market, with their list and supply continuing to grow each year. I honestly don't even feel like I really need to sing Gundam's praises or anything, because even if you're not a fan of it, it's had such an impact equal to that of, if not more, than Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon that odds are you've probably seen it.
My experience with the Gundam series is not quite as extravagant in the grand scheme of things. I mean, realistically, I know little to nothing about the community at large. But one thing I am sure about is how serious and passionate these fans take this Gunpla stuff. I mean, just look at these guys.
Level 5 Gundam, 17 hours.
Level 4, 3 days.
Level 3, 2 hours a night.
Level 1, Gundam, 1 hour.
Near endless articulation.
Level 5, 10 hours.
Gundam, what's your level?
Oh yeah! It was serious stuff. Now, I can't speak for how long the series has been going on as a whole, or how well it was doing, at least at the time, overseas in Japan.
But I think most will probably agree that it was around the late 90s when Toonami was airing over here in the US, where Gundam, as far as we're concerned, was beginning to take off, when shows like Gundam Wing were airing in the lineup, introducing all of us to the serious plots that went on in these kinds of shows, and once again, introducing us to the different culture, with Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon making all of their journeys to the West.
Believe in yourself and create your own destiny. Don't fear failure.
Odds are, if you didn't grow up in Japan, this is where you likely saw it for the first time. And from there, it was all uphill success with the toys, the model kits, the English dubs, and ports of certain video games like Gundam Battle Assault. Gundam Wing was one of my shows on Toonami, and it introduced me to my favorite characters and favorite Gundams in particular, with Wing Zero and or Wing Zero Custom being my go-to model for any game or topic of discussion. Even Hiro Yui I thought was an awesome hero because he had such a no-nonsense attitude and was very mysterious. A common cliche trope, yeah, now today, but go back then, this was a pretty new concept for me.
And that brings us to the present day, with the new PlayStation 4 game, New Gundam Breaker. Now, already going in, I know that this is going to be a strange concept for a game because, as far as I know, it doesn't follow any established continuity from the anime, but instead brings up its own brand new story centered around the market of Gundam toy modeling. And as I already told you guys, I know next to nothing about this sort of thing. I think I'm going to need some help.
Great, here it comes. Hey, Rob.
You want to review a Gundam game with me? I mean, I know that you're a robot, so you and this sort of stuff kind of goes hand in hand.
Psh, me? Help you? Hell no. Your lack of respect and knowledge of the way of the Gundam Gunpla is beneath me, and I will not subjugate myself to such an amateurish non-believer of the way of the Gundam. I'll bet you buy third-party model kits and can't even tell the difference between a high grade and a perfect grade, or the difference between a 1/100 scale versus a 144 scale.
Oh! Sick burn, bro! Sick burn!
Jesus, man, when the hell did you become an elitist snob?
Just never mind, but I do know somebody who might be able to help you with your primitive mind.
That looks good. Let me add a little bit of paint to this section. Wait, what? This isn't mine? Why is there a door here? What? Well, what did you do?
Hey, Clayton.
Hi, Rob.
Hey, Clayton. Haven't seen you since the Zestiria review.
Hey, Clayton, do me a favor and put your sissy poor man Sazabi garbage down and teach William a thing or two about Gunpla.
At least my Sazabi is from a good series, unlike you who like Seed.
You son of a bitch. At least with Seed, we had the Astray series, which are more popular than any of all your kits combined, and it sold more, too.
I think Unicorn would like to have a word with you.
I'm gonna shove a unicorn up your ass.
Well, Rob, at least my Lightning Zeta Gundam is better than your piece of crap wing over there.
The nerds, both of you! Clayton, please, without any interruptions, can you tell me anything to get me into Gunpla?
Oh, William. Gunpla isn't something you can just dive into.
I'm reviewing a Gundam game. You want in or not?
Gundam game? Hell yeah, let's do this!
Thank you. Let's go.
New Gundam Breaker is the first game in the line of Gundam Breaker games to make its way to the West, and is arguably the fourth entry in the series. I say arguably because it's not only the first game to make it to the States, but it's also the first game in the series to be developed by a different team. Allegedly. I don't know, it's kind of vague. Namco Bandai has addressed that in the future they will continue to apply further updates, patches, and fixes, but as of June 26, when this video was made, this is how the game was and probably currently is still functioning. As I said earlier, Gundam Breaker doesn't follow any continuity from any established cartoon, but rather invents its own stories based upon the idea that Gundams are just as they are in real life. A recreational hobby where people play, build, collect, and paint extravagant models with thousands of customizable parts. It's a pretty expensive and time-consuming hobby, but so is anything else when you have a passion for it. New Gundam Breaker story follows your mute protagonist, a new student in Gundam Toy Model High School. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Really? This already sounds utterly ridiculous. Your character's name is whatever you want it to be, but for the sake of comedic purposes, I do think I chose the most appropriate name. The moment you join in, things start to get out of control as there's a clear hierarchy in this school. The rich snob kids who like to hog all of the expensive Gundam models kits for themselves, and also like to keep hogging the painting rooms for themselves as well, and because of these kids owning these extravagant expensive models and parts, they always end up dominating the ranking systems of battles engaged. Those who have high rankings have a huge amount of respect amongst their peers. How does one engage in battles with Gundam models? Well, in-game, they explain that they have these science pods that you put your Gundam model in, and it sort of warps it and you in a virtual simulation where the game plays out like you'd expect in certain environments, like an office where other model kits are laying around. Well, it looks kind of cool at first. I mean, it is a pretty unique setting to be able to run around an office building as a toy model. It's kind of like Toy Story. I mean, I would hope this whole simulation thing is totally accurate. I mean, just imagine they didn't introduce the science-y pods about it. Could you imagine how this would probably be really playing out?
Alright, it's my Lightning Zeta versus your Suzabi. Winner gets to rule the school and complete rights over the office. You're on! Alright, let's go! Ah! Oh! I got your shield! Yeah, that's mine now! Oh, my wings! Oh, well, I know backpack! I got your shield, what are you gonna do now? Oh no! You fell apart! My Gundam! How could you do this to my Gundam? I can't believe he lost! He was the most powerful! I spent all my money on the best, most expensive parts!
Yeah, now guess what? I rule the school!
You know what? You've defeated me honorably. You've earned your place, man. Respect.
Yeah, we're not even gonna pretend here. This plot is absolutely ludicrous and straight up ridiculous. Shortly after the beginning, your character is befriended by several female students whom almost always are riding your dick and kissing your ass. And it plays out like a softcore hentai visual novel where all the sex and lewdness is replaced with Gundam themes and references. It's really kind of insulting. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's hilarious with how awkward and over the top the dialogue is. Sometimes it feels like they're hamming up the stereotype of how people think of others who indulge in model building, like it's self-aware or making a jab at the fanbase. Occasionally in the dialogue, your female harems will ask you questions usually just to get the player involved. But more than half the time, there's either one option making it pointless, or multiple options that lead to the same outcome regardless of what you pick. It's bullshit! Like this scene here where the girls are deciding to form a team and struggling to pick a team leader. You have a choice to deny the position and pick any of the girls to do so, but they all force you in the position anyway. I almost wonder why they even bothered putting a story in at all. With each scenario, a stupid cause and effect happens, forcing the player into a Gundam model team match where this obnoxious announcer named Rinko initiates the battle. Either by collecting points, waiting out the timer, or completing all objectives, the match will end or the next scenario begins. There are branching paths, but ultimately the choices you make are inconsequential as they lead to the same final outcome and scenario. The only difference, if you can call it one worth your time, is who your supposed love interest is.
If dating sims is what you're aiming for, then Gundam is not the series for you.
What we're trying to say is that the story is balls. In the climax, you meet with the top Gundam builder who holds a personal vendetta against you personally because you as a kid years ago beat him in a Gunpla tournament. And he just couldn't get on with his life. And ever since then, he has obsessed about the Gunpla and has practically ruined the hobby for others just to get revenge on you. His reasoning for this is he assumed you had someone else at the time build you a better Gundam toy, but in reality, it turns out you just have the heart of the cards, or toys. And because you put your heart into building these models, it allowed them to overpower his and are just somehow better in general because of it.
I put love on my Gundam all the time. It's the best lubricant for maximum articulation.
So yeah, if you're still here, one, God bless you. Now let's move on from this horrid travesty of a story and talk about the gameplay. The idea is you collect and purchase thousands of pieces of customizable Gundam parts and can mix and match them to create a special Gundam of your own to use in combat. Within the settings further, you can custom paint them to your liking, such as giving them a metallic sheen or a glossy look, or even make them look battle-scarred or just plain dirty. If you're the kind of gamer that really enjoys getting lost in the worlds of customization and likes to enjoy the creative process of these types of games, I can say that to an extent, you probably won't be disappointed. However, there is quite a catch with this one. The catch, more than anything, is of course, time and patience. Gathering parts in this game is going to be quite a test, as it's not as simple as buying a complete model kit with in-game currency and going to town. You do indeed have in-game currency to be sure, and it is possible to buy bits and pieces of selected models to your liking. However, therein lies a problem. Each customizable piece, regardless of size, is going to literally break the bank. From the start of the game, you're given what feels like quite a bit, but, over the course of playing the game, you will quickly learn that earning money in this game is a chore in of itself, as matches give you piss-poor currency gain. Kind of like a gacha system that's integrated into most mobile phone games. The currency system here feels no different. You will be lucky to buy anything. Interestingly, from the start of the game, you don't have a lot of options to buy much of anything anyway, as it is because the real gimmick of the game is collecting parts via the combat system.
Whenever your Gundam engages in combat, you are given a series of quests to accomplish. Whomever accomplishes the most determines the winning team of the match. These quests can range from collecting a number of items, returning said items, or destroying a certain something or someone before someone else does. During this, the opposing enemies will be trying to stop you, of course, by fighting you. However, fighting in and of itself is not the primary objective. In fact, you can die as many times as you like, and it won't really affect anything, as we've come to find out there's no real consequence for losing, as you quickly respawn on one side of the map to continue the fight and your objectives. Those facts are, of course, how you should succeed. But of course, having a decently powerful custom Gundam will ensure this for better or for worse. During combat, you will notice that either your or your enemy's pieces will be flying all over the place. These are pieces of armor and parts you can steal when on the floor for your personal collection. But you can only carry 5 at a time. You can switch them out with your current equipped pieces on command, but to ensure you keep them by the end of the match, the idea is to grab what you can off the ground and trek back to your team's toy box and camp for about 10 seconds, dropping off your inventory, ensuring the new pieces are yours indefinitely. Unfortunately, camping does leave you vulnerable, so be sure to be mindful of your surroundings.
Now, on paper, this sounds like it would actually be kind of a fun idea. And you wouldn't be wrong, but like anything, it's all in the execution. And New Gundam Breaker, we regret to say, falls flat on its face in many of these areas. First of all, when you think of Gundam games, generally high-octane adrenaline-rushing battles are what you look forward to, be it in games like Gundam Battle Assault or Ace Another Century Episode. But in New Gundam Breaker, yeah, combat is indeed there, and sometimes you will get involved in it, but you will no doubt be more concerned with all the flying around on the floor, and just like 52 card pickup, you will be more distracted in trying to just grab what you can and rush back and forth between your toy box and the fight for more garbage. Once a match is over, any pieces you collected will be shown to you. What's interesting is, if you snagged a piece from a model Gundam you don't have, that piece will be available to you for you to use at any time now. But now, the entire model itself in its completion, piece by piece, can be purchased from your in-game store. However, like we mentioned earlier, money is so ridiculously hard to come by that it almost doesn't matter. Well, but hey, at least you can look at it. What's more interesting about stages and battling for parts is that all of the Gundams you fight are completely 100% randomized. There is virtually no way to guarantee what you will be fighting, and thus trying to farm for certain parts becomes a complete crapshoot. As a whole, this is why a system like this in a game built for you to customize a Gundam to your liking just doesn't work.
The potential for greatness in a game like this is here. However, it's locked away by an unfathomable amount of busy work, and days if not weeks of tedious unlocking and praying the gacha system is on your side. How you plan to raise enough money to ever purchase more than one part ever is a complete mystery. If that were the problem enough, yeah, it would be problematic, but still doable. But to make matters worse, the fighting in general is not only boring, but adds another level of frustration.
Ugh, you said it. The game is an open arena fighter similar to well-known anime-type games, but when close up, the camera goes haywire and I can't see what the hell I'm doing. Locking onto your enemies is a bitch because half the time it feels like it doesn't work as it targets whoever the hell it wants to, and it can be an enemy hella far away, and meanwhile you're getting side bashed by an enemy you didn't see that was right up your ass. And I think you're supposed to use the right analog stick to switch between targets, but again, that's another feature that I think only works when it feels like it. Other times I don't want to target enemies at all and just run around to fetch the trash on the ground, but the camera is too focused on the fight. The fighting too is a complete weird mess because first off, you only have two main attacks: ramming the square button repeatedly for a looping combo, or pressing triangle for some kind of weird variant upward strike or something. That's it. Don't go in expecting to be able to mix and match buttons for amazing combos. I tried it, it's not gonna happen.
Actually, there does exist combos. Sort of by mixing those attacks. But the controls are pretty, well, unresponsive, and half the time it doesn't work anyway. Truthfully, you're wasting your time even attempting them, as just pressing square is enough to maybe win the fight. Yeah, that's the game in a nutshell. Press square to win. Your Gundam does have a gun, but I wouldn't waste my time on that either, as there is no manual aiming whatsoever. All you can do is press shoot and hope your slow shots hit something. Or better yet, forget the gun entirely.
Thankfully, there is more to the fighting than the repetitive sword swinging. Your Gundam model does indeed have customizable special attacks. These are mostly dependent on what kind of parts you've got equipped to your base Gundam frame in the form of EX skills. How you unlock them in battle, though, vary in 1 to 2 ways. And neither of them are any fun. You run around striking stationed boxes, gaining EX boosts to unlock their function for the fight, or by defeating enough foes to unlock them one at a time. At some point, they will become available for you, but they also have recharge time upon use, making them very situational and almost impractical and kind of impossible to use as often as you'd like. Sure, this does make spamming the powerful skills impossible for opponents, but it adds just another layer of busywork to distract you from what should be a simple combat system. Probably the worst offender is once again the fact that parts fall all over the place, falling from you and your enemies so easily, forcing everybody to scatter and pick things up. Sadly, as you're going to discover when customizing your Gundam, is that each part has varying statistics, adding a bit of an RPG element to your Gundam model, which means unknowingly in the heat of battle, whilst switching parts from ones you've gained on the floor, you could be gimping your model in a big bad way. And the fact is, it's too difficult to tell what the parts are when scattered or gained, and it just makes the gameplay a complete troublesome mess. Oh, but oh wait, it somehow manages to get worse. We already mentioned the fighting is boring, but what makes an annoying fight even more annoying? Brief invincibility when you or your foe is knocked down. Oh, trust me, this is going to cause a few eyes to roll. Whenever you perform any combo or heavy hit, your foe will get knocked down. Now, because there's some sense of fair play, the game does not allow you to continue the onslaught, but instead, you now have to politely wait for the enemy to get back up because the lock-on cursor says that you can't hurt him right now. I know this is a familiar staple of some classic games, giving the player some invincibility frames to rebound from a knockback, but this is not something you usually put into a fighting game. I mean, could you imagine in Street Fighter or Tekken if you knocked your foe on his ass and suddenly now he's invincible for the next 5 seconds because he needs a chance to defend himself? That would drive people nuts, man. I know this type of mechanic is often used in these arena-type fighters, but you know what? It sucks in all of them. It just slows things down. But wait, it gets worse. The frame rate consistently drops down below 30, and whenever an enemy or new items load in the stage, the game completely goes tits up for a few seconds whilst loading in the new assets. These are the kind of problems that should be easily fixed before a game is even shipped. How the hell did this game get released in such a borderline, disgraceful fashion? I may not be a diehard Gundam fan to any extent that these other diehard Gunpla guys are, but please tell me this isn't a quality standard for you people.
Actually, it isn't. Let's go back briefly to one game previous, Gundam Breaker 3. If you play this game, the differences are almost night and day. The options to build and customize your Gundam is still here, but each piece isn't unique. They are the same across the board, meaning no Gundam will automatically be weaker or better than another. The combat system is more refined, allowing for smoother gameplay and a plethora of more options in actual combat. First off, you have manual aiming, being able to shoot anywhere you wish. You have equipable attacks that aren't locked away behind EXP boosts and can be used freely, and the frame rate is consistent throughout. Just all around, Gundam Breaker 3 is a much better experience and truly the game fans deserved. What's worse is the game is 100% English translated officially, but somehow never got an official port from Bandai Namco. Thankfully, recently you can buy it on sites like Amazon, so getting a copy isn't that difficult.
In fact, this game would be a much better alternative, as right now in its current state, we cannot recommend New Gundam Breaker at all.
Like we've said, the potential for fun is indeed here, but until the game can be fixed either through Namco's promises of updates or by mods from the players for the PC port in the future, all remains to be seen. As it stands, New Gundam Breaker from an Expert Gunpla collector, and myself, the casual fan perspective, this game is a complete waste of your time, and an absolute joke, and an obvious cash grab.
So, in conclusion, if you bought New Gundam Breaker, you got gypped. Do yourself a favor, bust out the original PlayStation, and play some Gundam Battle Assault 2. Yeah! Oh, right in the fucking ass. Yeah, Wing Zero Custom! I'll kill you! Oh, come on, hero. Oh! And that one wins it.